years ago.
Okay, everyone, we're going to get started. Can everyone just find a place to sit? And I want to remind you that we will be broadcasting live. And because of that, I ask you right now to take out your phones and at least put them on silent. But I prefer you just turn them off so that we don't have any inadvertent rings during this forum today. I think those are the main administrative things. One other thing I want to cover. We don't have this mic today. The microphone will just be on the camera. Just to make sure everyone can hear you, talk as if candidates talk as if you're trying to talk to the back wall. We won't have it open for people to answer questions, but because this is a neutral forum, we won't be ask people to hold down their applause if they can. This is just for information purposes only. Okay, so I want to welcome everyone to the Johnson County Public Policy Council Forum for Overland Park Mayor. I'm Mike Hockley. I'm a partner with Spencer Fane Britton Brown, actually Spencer Fane now, and I'm also chair of the Overland Park Chamber's Public Policy and Advocacy Committee. For the next 90 minutes or so, we'll have an opportunity to hear from our candidates about the issues that are important to the business community. To start, let me introduce our candidates, and I'm just going to start from left to right, I think is the way they're ordered. Mike Czinege, Faris Farassati, Clay Norkey, and Curt Skoog. Our format today will be as follows. Each candidate will have 2 minutes for an opening statement. They'll just make the statements from where they're seated. Then they'll have 2 minutes each to respond to questions that have been prepared by the council. And then we'll conclude with 2-minute closing statements. And we've got about 9 questions. We probably won't be able to get through all of the 9 questions. I've got them here. They're questions that were prepared in advance. We haven't given them the exact questions, but they're part of the questions that they've seen as part of the overall questions and discussions that have been published before. We have a timer who will be assisting us. Thank you, Dana. And we also will have someone who will be telling us the order. So the order of speaking today, we drew lots. So the first person to speak will be Clay Norkey, followed by Mike Czinege, Curt Skoog, and Faris Farassati. So, Mike?
All right. Thanks, Mike. Thank you to the Johnson County Public Policy Council, the business leaders here, voters here and online. My name is Clay Norkey, and I'm running to be the next mayor of Overland Park. For my intro, I want to just tell you a little bit about myself and then go a little bit about my campaign. I'm an attorney. I spent 18 years at Shook, Hardy & Bacon, with much of the time spent in business litigation. I eventually transferred over into estate and trust litigation, and I've been on my own with my own firm for the last 4 years, doing primarily probate work. On the community side, I'm a commissioner and vice chair on the Blue Valley Recreation Commission, where I've served for about 6 years. I've also been a Bar Association president, HOA president, and at Church of the Resurrection, I led the Board of Trustees for 2 years and their church council for 3 years. I'm a co-founder of the Fathers Club over at Blue Valley West, and I've coached youth sports for 12 years. Now, all of these roles have involved oversight over large groups of passionate people. It included focus on fiscal responsibility and stewardship of both taxpayer and donor funds, and in some cases, it involved crisis management. Personally, I've lived in Overland Park for 22 years, married to Dr. Sherry Martin, who share it with Shawnee Mission Pediatrics, and together we have 9 children. And those 9 children are one of the primary reasons why I'm running. I want them to call Overland Park home. And we do that by making sure we've got good jobs, we've got affordable places to live, and we have amenities and policies that make them want to live here in a thriving community. My campaign can be summarized in 3 phrases: respect the past, embrace the future, and empower the people. We need to build on the strong foundations that have been laid, bring in forward-thinking new leaders who will run toward the future, not away from it, and empower the people through full transparency and real accountability.
Okay, thank you. Next, we have Mike Czinege.
Okay, hi, good afternoon, and thanks for being here. It's only my second time in the Chamber building. First time was really quite an experience to be in this beautiful facility, so I'm looking forward to this one. I am a 30-year resident of Overland Park. I've raised 3 children in this community. I'm originally from Cincinnati. None of you have ever heard my name before, most likely. I've never run for nor held political office. I'm a 44-year business executive, most recently the CIO at AMC Theaters, before that the CIO at Applebee's, and before that 8 years as a partner with Ernst & Young. During that time, I spent managing large organizations and solving complex business problems. And my goal is to bring that problem-solving ability to Overland Park as we face the challenges going into the future. Overland Park is one of the best cities in the nation to live in, and I want to make sure that we continue to move forward so that it's going to be a great place for my children and grandchildren. One of the first things we have to do is stop the overbuilding and density encroaching on all the neighborhoods in Overland Park. And this is just the latest example. It arrived in my mail today that they want to tear down the clubhouse at Deer Creek and put in 225 units of apartment buildings. My platform is very safe, and we'll talk more about that. It's very simple, safe and strong. A safe community. I support law enforcement and have been endorsed by Sheriff Cal Hayden of the Johnson County Sheriff's Department, and strong economy. I will work with businesses and residents to attract business and development without costly tax incentives to keep our economy strong and the residents safe. My personal belief is that we need to have a transparent city for law enforcement, taxes, development transactions, and they need to be accountable to the citizens of Overland Park.
Thank you, Mike. Next up is Curt Skoog.
Thank you. Welcome. Thank you, everybody, for joining us here today. Thank you for the Chamber for hosting. We're going to have an important discussion today about the future of Overland Park. On August 3rd, voters will set a new course for Overland Park, and I'm the only candidate in the race that has a proven and responsible leader in my 16 years on the City Council. Through that time, I've implemented improvements through building consensus in the community. I have been in this building hundreds of times, and a consensus among the council. I've been elected to the Shawnee Mission School District Advisory Board. I've been the chair of the Mid-America Regional Council. I'm currently the chair of the Bi-State Commission that oversees Union Station. All of these involvements in the community are the reasons that the past 2 mayors of Overland Park, Carl Gerlach and Ed Eilert, are endorsing my campaign. My track record is clear, but I will continue as mayor to focus on strong, safe neighborhoods throughout the city, growing and attracting businesses to generate more high-paying jobs, and strong partnerships with our public education entities. Community involvement has been a passion of mine for decades, and I will work with others, continue to work with others to make our community stronger. Overland Park is continually ranked as the best place to live, work, and play in the Midwest. As mayor, I will continue to build on this success. On day one, I'm ready to be mayor. I don't need any training. I've been working on this my whole career, from starting at my neighborhood association, my church, to the Shawnee Mission School District, to the council, to the MARC board, to the Bi-State Commission, to everything that I've done has led me to be the next mayor of Overland Park, because I know how to bring the community together to make things happen. Thank you.
Thank you. And last is Faris Farassati.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon. Thank you everybody who's here. Thank you gentlemen who are at this panel. I am Faris Farassati. I'm a cabinet councilman, had the pleasure of serving the people of Overland Park for the last years. I'm also a cancer scientist at Kansas City VA Medical Center. You probably have heard of me before. I consider the local government these days in the year 2021 more of a scientific topic than a political topic. My platform has been evidence-based government. This is a new style of government, which is supported by research, verifiable data, and evidence. Pew Research Foundation has a number of publications on it. We have to move towards an idea of government that is inclusive, that allows for new infusion of new ideas, that listens to the people and is away and completely pure from indoctrination. You have known me as an anti-tax incentive guy. I approve that message. The fiscal policies of the government of Overland Park are obsolete. Hundreds of millions of dollars are invested in areas that do not benefit the public. Our schools, our libraries, first responders deserve them. And the fact that we love Overland Park and we enjoy it doesn't mean that we should close our eyes to the challenges coming our way. We need a fresh vision, I agree with that, but that needs to be based on research. That needs to be based on evidence. And the game has to be open for new ideas. Transparency, inclusivity, working on a scientific manner to provide workforce and affordable housing, listening to the people and adjusting our priorities with the priorities of our constituents. At the end of the day, it's a representative democracy. My message would be the message of inclusivity, science, research, and listening to the voice of people. Thank you.
Thank you. Now next we'll move to the question portion of this forum. I'll just remind you that we'll go in the same order, asking questions, and we will give you 2 minutes to respond to a question. Each will respond to the same question, and then at the end we'll give you an opportunity to have a closing statement. So we'll start off with a question for Mr. Norkey. There's been a 1 mil property tax increase to fund the recommendations of the Mental Health Task Force that has been proposed for 2022. Do you support the task force recommendations? This is a multi-part question, so let me get them all out. Do you support increasing the mill levy for this purpose? And discuss why or why not, and how you would fund the recommendations if you support the recommendations but not the mill levy increase. You want me to repeat that?
I got it. Thank you. Number one, I fully support the recommendations of the Mental Health Task Force. It's an excellent start to address the mental health needs of this community. If we're to support our police officers, our firefighters, our mental health responders, and the overall mental health of our community, and truly take on mental health issues we face today, then we have to follow those task force recommendations. And to do that, that 1 mil levy increase seems like a bargain. As I look at it, it's somewhere between 40 or 60 bucks per household per year in that mill levy increase. That's what I understand it is, and I think that's one heck of a deal for all the things we're going to get for it. So yes, I support the Mental Health Task Force. I support the recommendations, and going forward, I think it's a good plan.
Thank you. Next up, Mike Czinege, the same question. You want me to repeat it?
No, thank you. I'm fine, thanks. Like the previous response, I fully support the mental health initiative and providing the first responders with additional support to help with the growing mental health problem. I do, however, object to the tax increase to be able to do that. It's 1 mil, but when you look at what that 1 mil is, it really represents a 10% increase in the mill level proposal, especially when you consider that it's over the effective mill rate increase from 2021. There was a tax law change in the previous year that property tax can't go up just based on appraisals, So that's the reason that mill level has to be increased, because we can't get any more funding just from appraisal increase. They have to make a deliberate attempt to change the mill level increase. So that's why it's happening this year, and that's why it's being surfaced. So again, I support the co-responders to help the police. It's a growing mental health problem, and I think this is a great first step to reduce the crime that's happening in the community and deal with the issues. But I object to the tax increase. It represents another 10% increase in the property tax.
Okay, thank you. Curt Skoog?
Thank you. It has been, Overland Park, our police department, approximately half of our police calls involve mental health situations. A few years ago, we started with our first mental health co-responder, and the stories that the police officers and the mental health co-responder told us of the impact they had on the lives of the residents of Overland Park were amazing. Not only did we help the person who was having the mental health crisis, our police officers were able to hand off cases to the mental health professionals so they could go back and do more work for our community. The mental health task force took a look at that, and they looked at other trends in the nation around helping people with mental health challenges, and their recommendations are broad. The first step is the behavioral health unit that's in the proposed budget for 2022. It's important to understand that Overland Park has the lowest property tax in the state of Kansas. We are less than half of Leewood's property tax rate, and that's because of conservative leadership within our city. A $300,000 house pays approximately $475 a year to the city of Overland Park for fire protection, for streets, for police, and for all the other snow removal, all the other things that we provide. Adding a mill to our already low property tax rate to take care of mental health situations with our behavioral health group unit within the police department, adding firefighters for our new fire station at 179th Street, and boosting our cyber security capabilities is a great value. And I've supported it so far through the process. We have a public hearing in September to finalize the budget, and I will be supporting it at the end of the year. Thank you.
Thank you. Faris Farassati?
All right, thank you very much. So let's look at it from what I just said, evidence-based government. First of all, we have a chronic problem, which is this tax giveaways, which makes us every time to go back and try to cut costs or raise the taxes on people. Had we not given away over $500 million in the last 6-7 years, we wouldn't have this conversation. We also didn't need to put a toll on Highway 69. So that's the chronic issue that you have. First responders, I'm one of the only with Councilman Hamble and council members who supported hazard pay for them when the others wouldn't. Now, mental health is an absolute necessity. It's a scientific concept. It has reached an epidemic level of problem in nation. But we need to do a good research. What are the other options other than raising mill levy? In a $300 million budget, did we look at other efficiencies? Number one, last night, and you'll see me tonight on TV as well, I questioned if this mill levy is gonna be targeted to this mental health task force. I wanna see guarantees that no bureaucrats can cut those positions, and then, we have this mill levy on the back of our people. So I'm reserving judgment. I'm waiting to hear from the people in September, but we need to do more research. We need to do a guarantee that this stays with our first responders. I am very much optimistic that a mechanism could be there that we look into guaranteeing that these funds, if the people of Overland Park are gonna agree with it, these funds stay for the police officers, for the mental health capacities, and not, a couple of years later goes to some wasteful expenditure pattern that we have observed recently. That's my evidence-based way of looking at this. Thank you.
Okay, that's the first question. The next question will go back to Mr. Norkey. What changes, if any, would you like to see the city's proposed budget for 2022? changes in the 2022 budget.
They're going to me again first? Oh, I thought we were gonna rotate who goes first.
We're just gonna go through the same order. I misspoke when I told you that we would rotate going first.
So I get to go first each
So
time.
you're gonna be
All
the
right.
guinea pig each time, I'm
Just
sorry.
like to hear. We just
Can
like to
you,
hear.
can you repeat the question then
Yeah.
for me, please?
What changes, if any, would you like to see in the city's proposed 2022 budget?
Well, in the city's proposed 2022 budget, I mean, coming out of the pandemic, I think stability is the number one thing that we need to focus on. Now is not the time to be cutting services. Now is not the time to be raising taxes at a high level. As the economy begins to accelerate, then that's when we can start looking at different options. But right now, I think stability is where we need to focus as far as the 2022 budget. And relying on the excellent staff we do have at the city level, I don't think there's a lot of huge changes that we need to make right now.
Right, thank you. Next up is Mike Czinege. Changes to the 2022 budget.
Okay. I would scrap the 2022 budget and start over. They're reporting a 9.6% increase in the 2022 budget, which includes the 1 mil increase. According to the Kansas Policy Institute, the way that the city has to report according to state laws is the increase over the current year budget. If you look at what the proposed spending is over the current estimated spend for 2021, it represents over a 38% increase over the current spend levels. I think we need to start it over. This isn't the time to spend more than we've already spent at that level when citizens and businesses are still recovering from COVID, and they're trying to figure out how they're gonna recover from COVID and continue to spend less. I think it sets a poor example for the city to spend at that levels over what the current estimated spend is.
Okay, thank you. Curt Skoog.
Thank you. Well, the budget process within the city is a year-round process. Through the committee system all year, we talk about what our priorities are for the next year, what policy changes we would like to make, and what projects we would like to move up and down or include or not include. The city manager takes that information and puts together a proposed budget. As council members, our jobs are to participate in those discussions and propose changes to budget items that we do not support or we do not like. It's not appropriate to wait, at least in my view, to wait till the final budget is presented to decide that you don't like what's in the budget. You're welcome to propose different changes if you'd like, of course. That's part of the committee system process that we do. That's how we get to the budget that we have. I have participated in every step of that budget process. I am supportive of the 2022 budget. It delivers on what our residents want. Our residents want safe neighborhoods, strong education, and high quality services. So we will maintain your street with this budget. We will protect your house with this budget. We will put out fires with this budget. And we will maintain the lowest property tax rate in the state of Kansas with this budget.
Right, thank you. Last, Faris Farassati.
So 2022 budget, it's too late to want to scrap it, with all due respect to the gentleman to my right here. But the concept is that we need to have a input from citizens on the way that we do budget. That's why in my plan named OP 2025, which is released on my social media, I propose a citizen advisory council on budget. That's something that we don't have. We need to have it. It's people's money, and we need to invite them to the discussion at the table. The 69 highway toll lane got approved within a week from the last proposal of this KDOT to the time that the first committee approved it. Who would do that to their own budget? I question you. Again, I'm sorry to repeat myself, evidence-based approach. budget needs to go through due diligence appropriately. Alternatives need to be considered. The concept of zero-based budgeting needs to be considered when you ask your departments to come and essentially prove to you every dollar that they need. And all of this needs to be considered. A budget funding chip seal is not going to pass my vote. Let me assure you of that. That's a tyranny to our people. We don't need to fund a health and a safety hazard. From the other aspects of this budget, I am still reserving my judgment on this mill levy increase. But I want to open the discussion of the budget, take it to the people who own these dollars. We have not been doing that, and we need to do that. This budget comes year after year, and you don't see that much change. Whatever the staff will bring us, we will agree with it. The staff are doing a great job. Last thing, we need to have a research facility, essentially an office that we could ask them to provide us with recommendations about the budget. And we don't have that right now. I would like to establish an office of research in that regard. Thank you.
Okay, we'll move on to the next question, and it's back to you again, Clay Norkey. What role, if any, do you believe the city should play in economic development to bring jobs and capital investment to the community?
I think growth is best managed by having a solid plan in place to guide us for the future. That plan's got to be based on reliable data, informed projections, and strong public engagement. We must be flexible to act reasonably and rationally when things on the ground change. A thorough review of our zoning and ordinances aligned with the people's goals will go a long way in setting those expectations. The city has a very important role to play in economic development. It has a very huge role to balance and manage the growth. The city has to look at all the needs, from infrastructure to housing to transportation to other services. Those are the things that the city provides. So we have to look at economic development. We have to be out there advocating for our city. We have to attract new businesses. We have to use all the tools in our toolbox necessary to get businesses here. And when we look at incentivizing businesses, we have to make sure that the benefit to the city, the benefit to the residents of the city outweigh the benefits to that particular business. But we are competing on a regional and national level. So we have to have all the tools necessary, and I will be a fierce advocate out there bringing in new jobs, bringing in new businesses, and leading Overland Park forward.
Mike?
Hi, this is a really important question. Overland Park has been built since 1961 on single-family homes, good businesses starting along College Boulevard and the great development that was done there, and new businesses continue to enter our community. New businesses, new residents want safety, quality of life, good schools, good infrastructure, and low taxes. We offer all those things. I am not in favor of using tax subsidies like we had to do at 135th and Nolan Prairie Fire with $65 million in star bonds in a failed development. We should be working towards lowering our taxes, using our taxes effectively, and relying on the foundational aspects of Overland Park with quality of living, education, schools, infrastructure to attract businesses and residents into Overland Park. Because right now we're seeing an exodus. Kansas is rated 8th in terms of high taxes, 8th in terms of high state and local taxes. We've seen an exodus from Kansas of $2.9 billion in adjusted gross income net. And in Johnson County, $309 million. So people are voting with their feet. We need to reverse that trend to keep people from leaving Johnson County and Overland Park for more rural areas to get back to single family living and lower taxes and not spending our tax dollars on tax subsidies to attract businesses in many times that don't work. Study after study have shown that tax subsidies don't work except when used judiciously for specific businesses to enter or for blighted or undesirable areas where developers won't go themselves. Certainly not prime real estate like 135th and Knoll.
Okay, thank you. Faris?
Thank you. The city plays an important and vital role in economic development because it's really an opportunity for us as a community to implement our dreams for our community. Next year, I've already put in the budget, we are revisiting our comprehensive plan. And part of that comprehensive plan will be the first time that we as a community are going to have a public discussion about where we want to be as a community. We're building off of Forward OP, and we are going to have discussions about topics like economic development. We have been extremely successful as a city in bringing high-paying jobs to our community. Just drive up and down this street and you have proof. We partner with the state on programs that bring new companies and new jobs to Overland Park in the state of Kansas. So please participate when we do the comprehensive plan and get into the economic development, because our dreams are really to be had, and we're going to have a discussion about where we want to go moving forward. People are not leaving Overland Park. Our income is continuing to increase. We just had a report by the our planning department in our annual development study that our average income of Overland Park residents is continuing to increase. Our population is continuing to increase. Our average pay for a job in Overland Park is continuing to increase. Overland Park is doing extremely well. And by the way, we have the lowest taxes in the state of Kansas.
All right, Faris Farassati.
Thank you. So again, I think my positions are clear. For 4 years, I have said tax incentives are a proposal for blighted areas. Has been, probably are tired of hearing me saying it. It's not for the most lucrative real estate market in the metropolitan Kansas City. It just, a penny of tax incentives going to a luxury development, the way that we have done this during the last 7-10 years, is only going to result to what you see today, that according to the report of our city manager, our reserve funds in the year 2024 could go below $30 million and affect our AAA rating. The data is on the website. I'm not making it up. You could look at it. What kind of investment is it that your saving account is disappearing? If you had your stock broker giving you a stock profile that your saving account is going to suffer from it, I suggest you fire that stock broker. So let's put it like that. Number one. So Lincoln Institute would tell you tax incentives have nothing to do with economic development other than blighted areas. For 4 years, I have been saying that. Number one. Number two, what are we doing for the small and local businesses? And this is going to be a revealing. I would like to have an EDC, which is a freestanding entity. EDC currently is a part of Chamber of Commerce. I believe there is a conflict of interest there. And I would like to see EDC as a freestanding entity which serves the benefits of the people of Overland Park. In nature of it being inside the Chamber of Commerce, I believe there is a conflict of interest. No offense to Chamber or anything, it's just the missions don't align with each other. We need to pay attention to small and local businesses. The only business we have been trying to support is luxury apartments with tax dollars. That needs to come to a stop. Otherwise, your schools, libraries, parks, and first responders will suffer. I'll put your tax dollars back to your pocket. Thank you.
All right, we'll move on to our next question. This is question 4, and Clyde, it's back to you. What do you believe are the greatest challenges the city faces over the next 10 years, and how would you address them?
Well, the city's going to have a lot of challenges over the next 10 years. One of them is misinformation. The other challenges are specific to our city, or it's having safe, affordable, and accessible housing. Because if you work here, you should be able to afford to live here. We have to build community connectedness across our very large city now, 200,000 people. So that's going to be a challenge. We have to address our aging infrastructure. And when we do that, we have to look and consider sustainability options. We have to keep and attract young people to our area. Kansas has a net loss of young people. We need to reverse that trend, and it all starts locally. And we have to address the projected growth of our senior population, which is expected to skyrocket in the next 10 to 20 years. All of those are challenges that we have to take head on. I'm not willing to wait for blight to act. I want this place to stay as good as it is and take it even further. These will all be challenges, and we have to work together with partners. We have to work with the chamber. We have to work with community advocates. We have to work with United Community Services. There are a ton of groups out there that are willing to work with us, and we have to work with business leaders. So these challenges are there, but with the right leadership, we can tackle them.
Thank you. Next up is Mike Czinege.
Thanks. We do have some challenges. Overland Park is a great place to live and work, but if we don't address some of the challenges on our horizon, it will be a less desirable place for our children and grandchildren. Some of the things we don't talk about. We have a rising crime issue. From 2016 to 2019, according to the Kansas Bureau of Investigation, indexed for population, violent crime, rape, murders, and aggravated assault is up 33% in Overland Park. Property crime in that same period is up 14%. If you doubt that one, talk to your neighbors or go on Nextdoor, which is a website where you see all the different break-ins that are happening in your neighborhoods. We need to get a control of that. We need to use law enforcement and work within the community to make sure we understand the causes and address them. Again, I was endorsed by Sheriff Cal Hayden from the Johnson County Sheriff's Office. Second is the proliferation of high-rise apartment buildings, what I call apartment cities that are intruding and adjacent to neighborhoods. Again, this one I just got in the mail today. They want to tear down the clubhouse at Deer Creek and put up 3 new apartment buildings, 2 of 3-story and 1 of 4-story, which is encroaching right into Deer Creek, and all the people who have homes right along that area, instead of looking at a nice lake and a hillside, are going to be looking at 4-story apartment buildings. In addition, it's going to affect the congestion in that area with all the lights and everything else that are there. The last is we need to stop wasting tax dollars on tax subsidies to the tune of hundreds of millions of dollars. We don't need them to attract the businesses. Some of the city council want to create a city that looks like they want it to look, not necessarily what the residents of Overland Park are willing to invest their tax dollars to create.
Okay, Curt Skoog.
Thank you. As a city, we have lots of issues we're going to have to deal with in the next 10 years. Many of them have been identified already. But what I can tell you is what I have done as a council member to affect these already. As the only candidate up here that lives north of 127th Street, maybe they're not aware of what downtown Overland Park and Metcalf and Knoll Avenue looked like before we started to invest in projects. If we wouldn't have invested in those projects would not have happened. And we would not see the increasing property values that are happening inside 435. And there's this fantasy, we love to throw around big numbers, hundreds of millions of dollars, right, that you hear. These are 20-year projects. It does add up over those years, but let's talk about real numbers on a real project. So on Avenue 80, the property taxes that the city collected before the building was $10,000. We're still continuing to receive that $10,000. The money that Shawnee Mission School District collected before Avenue 80 was $44,000. Today, they're receiving $130,000. So they're receiving $85,000 more than they did before the project. They would not have gotten any of that money if that project had not been built. So let's get into real numbers instead of these big $1 million numbers that don't apply to the everyday budget process, to the impact that it has on changing in our community and making impacts in our community. I think if you talk to residents who live inside 435, and if they remember what it was like before we started investing in projects, they tell me every day that we're glad that we're doing that at 95th and Metcalf, at 95th and Antioch, at 95th and Dahl. So without the incentives, the projects wouldn't happen.
Okay, we've got the last question, or the last person for this question is Faris Farassati. But before you start, we're going to change the rotation. Apparently, we are going to not have Clay go first every time.
I think you should be first this time.
But if you want to go first, you know.
I volunteer him to be.
Okay, so now you can go last for the last time. Faris.
All right, okay, so folks, I think the number one challenge we have is the attitude of the status quo in the government of Overland Park. The attitude that tells you if you fight for 5-6 years against the brokerage project, I am gonna allow that to happen to your backyard, and I'm gonna reward it with $230 million, including $60 million out of Shawnee Mission School District. That's when I announced for mayor. I just couldn't take that anymore. The number one challenge we have is the philosophical notion that we know better without evidence. The philosophical notion that attracting Lowe's to Metcalf is such a great economic development. The number one challenge we have is, in my humble opinion, the conflictive statement. Overland Park is the best place to live, but if you don't hand over a bag of money to a bunch of developers, nobody wants to build a square foot here. Which one is it? Either you built a good city with good schools, with amenities that attracts these investments, therefore put your tax dollars in public amenities and services, or you have done something wrong in the last 10, 12 years. It's time to change your view. And I am not writing off everything that the status quo has done. There was a time Overland Park was very young. That time has passed. It's a 60 years old city. You have chip seal. You have underpaid first responders. You have the demands of quality of life. You have your residential neighborhoods which want certain amenities that you are essentially defunding. The time to have a change in the view has arrived. That's our number one challenge. A government that adjusts its priorities according to your priorities, listens to you, puts your tax dollars back in the pocket of your children. I think that's our number one priority. Everything else can be fixed once we fix that. Thank you.
Okay, now we're going to a new order. And Mike, Czinege, you'll be answering first. And I'll give you the question. Do you believe the current city manager form of government we have is appropriate for Overland Park? Or would you favor a strong mayor form of government?
Sure, thank you. I'm in favor of the current form of government. I think there's a good split there. I happen to grow up with a similar form of government in Cincinnati, Ohio. We had a city manager and a mayor. And I think it works very well. We have a city manager who's a business professional, who's responsible for administration, operations, day-to-day things, budgeting, those types of things, to make sure that the strategy and the policies are implemented. As long as they work with the city council, which they do, I think it's a good form of government. That leaves the city council and the mayor to deal with strategic issues, policy issues, work with legislators outside of the area, work with the law enforcement group. And it's really critical that we do work outside of the city, because so many of the things that happen in Topeka affect us here. So many of the things that work in Washington, D.C. affect us here. And if anything, we need to do that more to make sure that our legislators, both at the state and federal level, know what is important to us and what's going to help our community grow and develop. So I think it's a good split. I think the city manager and the staff there do a good job, and I think that the mayor and the city council can work with policy and strategic issues. and manage that collaboration that's necessary laterally within the city, the county, and then federal and state.
Okay, thank you. Next up, Curt Skoog.
Well, it's been my honor to work next to Bill Ebel and John Nachbar, two of the most professional city managers that there are in the country. And through their leadership with the council's policy direction, we have developed one of the greatest cities in the country. We have the lowest property taxes. We have a high quality of life. We have a high level of police protection and safety. Our residents in our regular surveys tell us that how satisfied they are in living in Overland Park. So I'm not in favor of changing our form of government. It has delivered value for our residents. But I do want to get back to incentives for just a second because there's continues to be false information. Lowe's did not receive any incentives, just to let you know. Less than 10% of projects that you see receive any kind of incentive. And most of those get a sales tax break on construction materials if they fit within our priorities within a city. So there's this myth that every project that you drive by going down the street is receiving incentives from the city. That is false. That is not true. We incentivize and invest in projects that deliver on the priorities our residents have set, which includes the Vision Metcalf Plan, downtown Overland Park, 95th and Metcalf, Antioch and 95th Street, 95th and Knoll. That is where we are doing the city-based incentives because we are investing in our community because we want our community to continue to be the best place to live, work, and play in the country.
Faris Farassati.
Please repeat the question because
Yes.
I was distracted.
Do you believe the current city manager form of government we have is appropriate for Overland Park? Or would you favor a strong mayor form of government?
the whole strong mayor, weak mayor is an obsolete and unscientific concept. This is a topic of conversation related to about 30 years ago. When you look at it, that's not even a topic which should be entertained in 2021. The platform I suggest, again, based on the infusion of new ideas around this country, is what we refer to as evidence-based government. In evidence-based government, it's not about a person. It's not about Bill Ebel. It's not about having the honor of working with this guy and that guy. It's about the system, a system that analyzes what needs to be done, listens to the people, delivers the most efficient way to carry those services based on existing budget. It's a system that doesn't waste your resources. It's a system that goes back and controls the outcome of decisions made. And I'm absolutely amazed that we are still hanging over a model which is, if you just look at the literature, it's for really rural areas. There is no, the council is representing the people. Our staff are, providing technical advice, but we are void of an evidence-based manner of analyzing our decisions. Decisions are looking like they are made, and the council is in charge of selling them. I want to change that dynamics. That dynamics needs to be changed, needs to be updated in a way that it's an inclusive conversation between the number one stakeholder, which is the people, and their representatives and experts, including our staff, and also our academic centers. Folks, one more time, I'm a scientist. There is a wealth of information, knowledge that our academic institutes can infuse to this government. We just need to let that happen instead of closing our minds and just saying the way it has been is the best. Overland Park is beautiful. It can be even more beautiful.
Hey, Norkey,
All right.
you want me to read the question again?
No, I'm good. I think having the city manager form of government helps to ensure that we have professionals running the day-to-day operations of the city. I think it works. But it only works if there's good oversight. The council has to provide guidance. It has to provide the lead. It has to provide leadership. And it has to have the courage to step in when the city manager diverts from the path that the city council has set forward. So it has to be able to do that. We also have to be careful of not getting too comfortable with the city manager, and the council. But overall, I think it's a great way to run the city because we actually have professionals and not politicians running things, and that's what we want. We also have to make sure through the council and through the leadership that we're instilling a full level of transparency and accountability through all parts of local government. That starts at the top, and I will make sure that we have that when I'm mayor. And I want to address the whole issue about what our government is really based on. As a lawyer, I believe our government and our rule of law is based on the Constitution. It's based on laws, it's based on the people. We are informed with evidence, with science, and that helps guide us. It doesn't rule the day. We are a Constitution government. We are based on laws. We're focused on the people.
Okay, we'll move on to the next question, and Curt Skoog will be first to respond to this. What specific proposals do you have to support the goal of providing access to affordable housing throughout the city?
Well, thank you for that question. It's a very important question. And first, I want to just point out what we're currently doing. So in the last year and a half, we have approved 3 projects that are delivering attainable housing. I use the word attainable housing because I think it's a more appropriate word, because it's really about finding housing that people can afford to live in our community. So we are converting 2 extended stay hotels, and we've already extended 1 hotel into attainable housing. So we're already taking our first steps. The next project is at 87th and Floyd, where I worked with the neighbors for them to get comfortable with a residential project that's denser than they would have liked to have, that will provide attainable housing over there. We've got a long way to go. And what we have done to prepare to blaze the road for more attainable housing is we built the first apartment buildings inside 435 in almost 40 years. Now, some of those projects are more attainable than others, but we have proven to the market that you can build market rate apartments inside 435, which is a huge win for our community. The next projects that come I will be advocating strongly that they include more attainable housing for all incomes across our community. We have to have housing for our firefighters, our teachers, and our policemen across our city. Part of the comprehensive plan is we're going to have a work group on housing. And we as a community need to come together and have the tough discussions that everybody, that neighborhoods can look different than they look today. That is a hard discussion to have. And it's my hope that we can come together and have a consensus about what we would like to happen as a community. So thank you.
Right, Faris.
Thank you. So isn't it amazing that people who have been on this council for 16 years suddenly in the election year open their eyes to affordable and workforce housing, and they talk to you about what they have done in the last month? Where was the conversation 10 years ago? Where was the conversation when hundreds of millions of dollars, over $500 million, was given away to luxury apartments? Where was the conversation with brokerage? Took $230 million. Is it only a conversation for the election year? That's my number 1 question here. Number 2 question is that, again, look at the mechanistics. There are a number of mechanisms that you could do for affordable, attainable workforce housing. Establishing a house funding authority, applying a linkage fee, establishing an acceleration fund. These have been done, folks, in San Francisco, Seattle, Los Angeles, promoting rent-to-own programs that are not predatory, providing sustainable energy solutions as a way of long-term affordability, putting these complexes next to community resources such as daycares. These models need to be researched. We haven't done any of that. Why? Because we were too focused on giving your taxes away to luxury apartments, which hurt affordability. Now suddenly in election year, we are all for affordability and some hotel is being changed to affordable housing is all we have to show. Again, not logical. We need a change in the view. We need to bring our resources back, research it. What is the meaning of affordable housing? Research, I still don't have a number. Kansas City, Missouri tells me it's $1,100 to $800. What is the number for Overland Park? We haven't even researched it. Why? Because of the pressure of lobbyist groups, which took your dollars for luxury apartments. And now, of course, in election year, it's a very appealing term. And we want to essentially put something in front of you. We will go back, we research it, we will find solutions, we look at national models, and hopefully we will get the problem going the right way. Thank you.
Norkey.
All right. I said it earlier and I'll say it again because I think it's critically important. If you work in Overland Park, you should be able to afford to live in Overland Park. We want our teachers, our firefighters, our police officers, our service industry workers, our essential workers to be embedded in our community. We want them to send their kids to school with our kids. We want them to be part of our neighborhoods. That is what creates a thriving community. So we absolutely must address the issue of affordable housing with safe, accessible, and affordable options. The other issue on affordable housing is another end of the spectrum. It's our senior population. With the projected growth, we have got to recognize that we have to have affordable options for our seniors so they can age in place, whether that's in their home or just in the community where they have friends, family, familiar surroundings. We have to address this. It's critical. And to do all of this, we need to partner with folks. I'm tempted to phone a friend to answer this question and reach out to the United Community Services Director that's sitting in the audience with us today, because they've created a housing toolkit that they presented to the county and to the cities that we should be using as a guide. We can use that as a guide to move forward to achieve these objectives. In addition to those, we have to look at the zoning, we have to look at ordinances to make sure we're identifying and rectifying impediments to reaching our goal of affordable housing. And this is identifying things that will work for our neighbors, for the people of Overland Park. We need public engagement in the process. We should be using the land bank that I understand that we have, but have never used, and establishing a housing trust fund, which will help for the overall cost of housing.
Okay. Next, Mike Czinege.
Affordable housing. Let's go back to the founding of Overland Park. Overland Park was founded starting in 1961 with a group of guys, including Dick Bond, who I happened to serve on the board with KBC Behavioral with for a number of years, on single-family residential homes with high quality of life, good schools, good infrastructure, and we need to make sure we return to those roots and make sure those residents have priority so that the money they have invested in their homes is not wasted or destroyed with high density apartments that come in with spot zoning. Now, what I also believe is that we can create affordable housing, but as Faris said, we don't know what that looks like right now. I believe we need to have those studies done in parallel with reprioritizing the single family homes and planned development to make sure their quality of life is not destroyed with high density housing. The analysis has to be done. We can look at other cities, other communities who have done this without destroying the foundation and the beauty of Overland Park for all of its residents. People have invested too much money in their homes, usually their single largest investment, to have it destroyed by high density houses. I've walked hundreds of homes in this campaign, and it is a consistent theme of people when they first of all go look at my street, it's chip seal. I hated chip seal, it doesn't work. And oh, by the way, another large complex is coming in right down the street from us that's gonna increase our congestion. Let's focus on the current residents of Overland Park and in parallel, study and do it the right way versus forcing something into some pre-existing building or some other affordable housing that hasn't been well thought out, that's not based on analysis.
Okay, next question will go to Faris Farassati. Since its founding in 1960, Overland Park leaders have had a long history of visionary planning. What do you believe the city should do today to ensure the city's prosperity for the next 60 years?
It's investment in public amenities and public services. Overland Park is a great place, there is no question. I offer my highest level of respect to the founders of the city, to everybody who was serving this city with honor and integrity. The old models are obsolete. You don't hang to an old drug because it was the original drug which was discovered. You take the newest drug if you are sick. We need a new plan for Overland Park, and a new plan based on reality, not based on the writing of the opinion of the people, not based on priorities that are made in City Hall under influence of special interest groups. The priorities that people have out there. That is true. The nature and the characteristics of Overland Park is something that a lot of people love, and they see a change. Our senior citizens, I have been in conversation with them, and they feel like they are being squeezed out of their house because they can't afford the taxes. So we need to bring, again, one more time, we need to bring the big people to the table. They need to be in the kitchen, not being fed the soup that has been made. That's what I'm trying to achieve. And then the priorities will be reset, and then we will find the most effective way to do it. Folks, the difference between what I say and all of my dear friends here is that I have a plan for it, and you hear a lot of narratives. You hear a lot of narratives, you hear a lot of, trust me, this is the way it has been, I am a great this, I am a great that. I have a plan. The plan is OP 2025. Please visit our website, please visit my Facebook, you will see it. I am not saying I have all of the answers, but at least I have a plan. Thank you.
Okay, Norkey.
We've come a long way since 1960. Thanks to the hardworking people of this city, and thanks to bold, visionary leaders of the past. They were new leaders at the time, and they stepped up to serve. To ensure our future prosperity, we must continue to do that, and by bringing in new, bold leaders. We need to bring in new perspectives. We need to raise up new voices and bring them to the table. We all have to be willing to work hard. Of course, we have to address the issues that concern us today, but we can't sacrifice the future by being too comfortable and settling for the status quo. We have to look forward. And one of those ways is to, in addition to raising up new leaders, is for strong public engagement, being out there, communicating with the public, so it's a two-way street. We are sharing successes, acknowledging failures, and we're listening to the people. One of those was the Forward OP plan. That involved hundreds and hundreds of folks in Overland Park. Not a small group created by a campaign to determine which direction we're going to go. No, something like Forward Overland Park that has people invested in our community, because you have to have buy-in if you want to go forward. So with our bold new leadership, we will take Overland Park forward.
Okay, Mike Czinege.
Okay. Again, Overland Park is a great place to live. The vision's been great. It's time to revisit. We were founded on strong schools, quality jobs, and affordable community. That vision has been hijacked. The vision has been hijacked with haphazard zoning, poorly planned infrastructure, and tax giveaways. We need to redo it. First thing is we need to return to our roots and look at what made us great. Strong business community that wants to be here because they want its employees to live in a high quality area with good schools, good roads, all the things that go along with our high quality of life, and low taxes. Tax subsidies, used judiciously, can be helpful, not tax giveaways. Use them where needed, but not in general, not even at 10% of the buildings that go up. Our future hinges on restoring the formula that made us successful. Quality neighborhoods, good schools, good education, and good infrastructure, which has been ignored. You can see that with 69 Highway, when the only alternative that came forward for the vote was a toll, and I would say an ill-conceived toll, promoted by KDOT because they didn't have the money because the money was swept into out of the KDOT fund into the general fund to cover shortfalls from the taxes there. Should have had the money. We paid for it twice.
Thank you. You know, it's fun to go back during an election. You go back and look at original maps of the community and you see where we've come from. And our founders and our first leaders had a vision for Overland Park to become a dynamic place to live, work, and play. And we are on the most dynamic part of it right here when it comes to work. More people work within 2 miles of College and Metcalf than do in all of downtown Kansas City, Missouri. We are a dynamic place, and that is because of planning. And that planning has always involved public participation. When I was first elected to the council 16 years ago, I knocked on doors and people told me, they said, we love our neighborhood, we love our house, but I'm scared to death of the property value of my house when I sell because of all the aging commercial centers around me. That is when I got elected. We pulled what was then the largest public participation ever to create Vision Metcalf, the next generation of planning document, where we, instead of looking at the edge of town, we looked back into town and said, as a community, what do we want to be? And we came together and created the Vision Metcalf plan that we've been implementing for 16 years. That is what planning is. That's why Overland Park is what we are. Our next step is the comprehensive plan, which is next year. So the comprehensive plan will be the next largest participation, building off of Forward OP, using the same model. We as a community will come together and set that vision and that dream for who we want to be for the next 10 or 15 years. This isn't based on the loudest person in the room or who's got the best social media account. This is about people coming together, having a discussion about where we want to go. 69 is a prime example of how the city works at planning. We've been working at 69 for over a decade, and we got it done, and we need to celebrate that that's happened. Thank you.
Okay, we've got time for one more question. And then after that question, we'll have 2-minute closing by each person. So this last question will go to Clay Norkey first. So back up. We rotated back to you.
All right.
Do you believe the City of Overland Park Council is responsive to the needs of the community? And what is your approach to governance?
I do think the city needs to do a better job in being responsive to the needs of the community. I think the handling of the officer-involved shooting of John Albers is a prime example. The slow trickle of information with that investigation over 3.5 years was simply unacceptable. We need leadership that is more transparent. We need leadership that will stand up and be accountable. Rip off the Band-Aid and tell us what happened. What did you do? What was the deal struck? What are the documents involved? And then they can be judged for it. And then they can come out and say, yes, good job, that was the right thing to do, or wow, no. They have to be held accountable. So I do think we can be better. We need less defensiveness and we need more accountability. My approach to governance is one of full transparency and accountability. We are working for the people. We are representative of the people. We have to be accountable to the people. That is imperative. So transparency, accountability, and being proactive. That would be my approach to governance.
Thank you. Next up, Mike Czinege, this is the last question.
Okay. I don't believe the council is responsive enough to the citizens of the community. There are issue after issue of residents voicing their opinion and not being heard. At the last count, there were 27 HOAs that had signed a petition against chip seal. And yet, what's in the budget? Chip seal year after year. I listened to some of the residents. I've talked to a lot of residents around 69 Highway. And yet it was the only option during the hearing and the only option that was voted on. We need to listen to the voices of the residents. Again, Deer Creek just got the notice today. I don't have a lot of hope that no matter what the residents of Deer Creek do, that they will be able to stop the locomotive that's already in the planning stage that goes to the Planning Commission August 9th, that we won't get our 3 apartment buildings with 225 apartments equal to the same number of houses that exist in Deer Creek. We do need to be transparent and accountable. The example of John Albers, who was shot, and the trickle of information is a terrible example of being transparent to the community. We also need to be accountable. And that accountability doesn't just include law enforcement, but includes the financial transaction of the city. When we do have tax subsidies, like at 135th and Knoll in the Prairie Fire, it shouldn't be just once it's done, and here's the deal, and here's why we're doing it. But every year, we should revisit each one of those publicly and find out how we're doing against them, if nothing else, so that we can learn from the wins and learn from the mistakes that we make, so that we either do or don't do them the next time in a similar kind of arrangement.
Curt Skoog.
Thank you. Accountability is the primary job of being a council member. At least it has been for the 16 years I've been on this in this seat. I'm accountable every day. You can read my emails, you can see my phone calls, you can go to the meetings I go to, and you find out that I'm accountable every day to my residents and my constituents. Improving that is part of something else that we do. I do every day, is how can I be more transparent and more clear in the decisions that I'm making. What I do is that I'm very clear in council meetings. I'm clear in communications with people who engage with me on the decisions that are at hand. You know, Overland Park has, I have been proud in my time on Overland Park to make sure that we get huge public participation in decisions. And so Vision Metcalf, I'm going to come back to that again, the largest participation that we've ever had on a project. When we could look at Ford OP, the largest participation that we've ever had in a project. The challenge as a council member is that, do you listen to everybody you talk to, or do you listen just to the loudest voice in the room? And in this society we're in today with social media, it becomes harder and harder to listen to the broader audience and not listen to the loudest voice. Overland Park's success has been based on listening to the broader audience of residents and stakeholders in the city of Overland Park, not the loudest voice. And that's something that we need to focus on as we move forward. In the city budget, we've added additional people to help us with communication because we know that people's expectations of communication is changing. And so we are being proactive in adding communication from a city point of view. I believe as a council member, I've been proactive in communicating and being transparent to my residents and my constituents.
Faris Farassati.
Thank you. Again, away from narratives, back to specifics. Ranch Mart South. I worked with that people. That was a life-ruining project. And some of my colleagues here just left them. We worked with them. Their voice were expressed. They defeated that project. So I tell to the gentleman to my right, don't be so disappointed if we communicate with people, if you bring them to the discussion, sometimes we win. Transparency. In the case of shooting death of Jan Albers, I am one of the 2 council members with Councilman Hamblin, we are in the Kansas City Star, Washington Post, and Shawnee Mission Post. We forced a fact-finding mission based on our efforts. Nobody else helped. Nobody else you ever heard of backing us in that. Every other claim is simply not justifiable. We were there. We released 500 pages. All of these FBI investigations, everything was after that. I am proud of that. I established public comments. Overland Park never had public comments. So people could come forward, talk, and that would improve accountability. Just look me up. So, you hear it. Again, one more time. People are referred to as naysayers. People are on Fox News interviewing about chip seal and they say, well, we listened to people. That's the best we could do. I reject that notion. I think we can do better. When people don't want a traffic light removed because 10 accidents happen, they are being referred to as mob. Oh, we can't be mob ruled. We can't listen to you. I reject that. Let's look at the voting record. Let's see how you were transparent, how you were accountable, when your voice was heard. Where were you when these top issues were, high issues were there? You look me up, you will see there, and I am very sure you can do a good research on me and judge. Thank you.
Okay, we've completed oops, one more. We've completed all the questions. Now we're going to give each of you 2 minutes for your closing, and we're going to start with Mike Czinege.
Well, we come to the end of another forum. A lot of work in preparation, a lot of work, thought that goes into these things, and probably a little bit of nervousness as we go through. I'd like to reiterate, I am proud to live and work what I did in Overland Park. It is a great place to live and work. My challenge is we can continue to do better. We have a great community. If we don't address the things that are on our horizon, it won't be as great a community for our children and grandchildren. We do have a rising crime problem, like much of America. Violent crime up, property crime up, we talked about that earlier. We need to work with law enforcement, we need to work with mental health professionals, we need to work within our city to understand the root causes of it and work with the community, with law enforcement, to be able to get a handle on that rising crime and don't let it infect our neighborhoods anymore. We have a rising tax burden on residences and businesses. Since 1997, our property tax rate in Overland Park has risen 320%. 6 times the rate of inflation and 3.3 times the rate of inflation plus population. That's revenue to the city. Yours individually hasn't gone up that much, but 320%. We can do more with that money. I believe we need to start over with that budget and investigate it from the ground up and use some great minds, advisory groups to look at it. We need to solve some problems with the density. Too much density and too many apartment buildings are intruding on our neighborhoods, which is affecting their quality of life. Stop what we're doing, focus on safe community and a strong economy. We need to listen to our residents. We need to reduce our tax and spend. We need to support law enforcement and resolve the rising crime issues. We need to stop overdevelopment. I believe we can and will do better. We can do better working together.
Thank you. Curt Skoog.
Thank you. Well, thank you all for sitting here. This has been an extended period, and thank you for staying awake and paying attention. For the first time in 16 years, voters will choose a new mayor in Overland Park. This is the first of many upcoming staffing changes within the city. It's a time of transition for Overland Park. An experienced leader will be required to guide the city forward. From my first election, when I knocked on doors and delivered the Vision Metcalf plan, Implementation of community vision has been one of my key focuses. Through that plan, we've attracted $540 million of a private investment within north of 435. So the idea that we can stop, that we're great the way we are, that we don't need to continue to evolve to attract our children and our grandchildren to come work with us is just a false narrative. It's easy to come from the sidelines and have all of these great ideas of things that you can implement. I'm ready to implement the things we've been working on, plus the new vision that we're going to get out of the comprehensive plan. As mayor, I will continue to lead the council to invest in Overland Park's future. Residential street construction, parks and gathering places, the new farmers market structure, the Arboretum Visitor Center, the new Blue Hawk multi-sport facility, street expansions, new fire stations. People are choosing Overland Park as their home. Property values are increasing. These facts demonstrate that we have a thriving city, not a broken one. As mayor, I will continue to lead the community to build on this success. Next year's comprehensive plan will be our first chance to dream about what we want to do next for the next 10 to 20 years. I ask for your vote on August 3rd to keep Overland Park moving forward.
Faris Farassati.
All right, thank you very much. This was a great pleasure. I guess at the end of the day, the choice is clear here. You have a choice in me which wants to establish a government as a scientific operation, as an operation which works on the basis of research, data, logics, considers the priorities of the people. Then you have views which are different from that. You views that dismiss the voice of the people, as it was dismissed in the Arboretum, as it was dismissed in the brokerage, as it was dismissed in Ranchmar, this was dismissed in even a structure of a gazebo downtown. That model is obsolete. At some point it will change. Folks, it's the natural evolution of a system that the status quo resists change. But the question you have to ask yourself is that, what is the best platform for the future of your children? For the ones who need parks, libraries, schools, public safety, where are your tax dollars gonna go? I have been saying that for the last 4 years. This is not a new thing. If you have heard me, look me up on Google, I have been constantly saying that. Plans, specifics, not narratives, not empty promises, not sticking to your guns and dismissing. Leadership that is not detached from reality. And the concept of leadership is something that we do in a teamwork, not me as a leader. Thank you very much for being here. It was a great pleasure.
Okay, Clay, you're the bookend. You started us, you're gonna finish.
All right. Well, I'm going to start my closing where I ended my intro. Respect the past, embrace the future, and empower the people. We cannot rest on our laurels. I'm grateful for those who led us to where we are for the first 60 years, and now we have to look to the next 60. It's a different world. It's a highly competitive world, and it's a world that demands connectivity, transparency, and dynamic leaders who are out there sharing successes and acknowledging failures. We can learn from the past and realize that now is the time to bring in new, energetic leadership to foster an environment that leads to the next 60 years of prosperity. We must embrace that future. We need forward-thinking, transparent new leadership. Our residents are demanding it. I've talked with them. They want to keep the good, but they want to keep moving us further. So what are their choices? What change will we give them? We've got the status quo candidate representing the past. We've got the radical, upturn all that we've built candidates that could lead to a dramatic reversal of all of our gains. Or me, the one who will fight at all levels to preserve the good that we have built, who represents forward-thinking change that voters are demanding and is ready to dive in. I'm already enmeshed in the community and will not shy away from promoting the excellence that this city offers. Together, we will empower you. We will empower the people of the city. We will empower community leaders, and we will empower the business leaders. With full transparency and accountability, I will continue building relationships with all leaders, from grassroots, regional, state, and federal, because we have to fight to keep the good and not let it get stripped away. I will be a fierce advocate for this city. So I want to thank you very much for the time today. You can find out more information at claynorkey.com, and I look forward to serving for 4 years as your mayor.
Okay, can everyone join me in giving a round of applause? I'd like to thank everyone for attending and watching online, and I'd especially like to thank our candidates again for participating in today's forum. We appreciate your time and willingness to serve the community. We have 4 great candidates with different visions. You've got a great choice to make. There'll be a recording of this event will be posted on our voter education website in the next 48 hours. That's votejoco.com. And finally, we encourage everyone to learn about the candidates and vote. Advanced voting in person begins on Saturday, July 24th, and the polls will be open on Election Day, Tuesday, August 3rd, from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Thank you all and have a good evening.
You go first all the way, sorry. I didn't think you would take it. You did good at first time. He wasn't too